So welcome to a special edition of the Alumni Podcast. It is Graduation Ceremonies Week 2024, and I'm joined with three of our honorary graduates, one of whom is also a graduate of the university. So rather than me introducing you, would you mind if we just go around and you would just introduce yourselves? Start with you, Louise. Sorry, I've put you on the spot.
That's fine. My name's Louise Cheeseman. I was born and brought up in Hull, and I've spent my career in the transport sector. I don't have a degree. I've got an O-level in cookery, but I live on ready meals. So.
Oh no, I was just about to say you could have made us dinner, but then you ruined that.
No, I don't know how I got an O-level in cookery, but I did.
Okay. Well, we won't judge you. There's no judgment here. No judgment here. David.
My name is David Byrne. I'm a writer and theatre director and currently artistic director of the Royal Court Theatre. I'm a graduate of the University of Hull in drama, and I actually have an A-level in cookery, having left a course that I didn't want to do, and the only other option, I'm still losing the weight from that 2 years where I put on a huge amount of heft having done that course.
So could we expect you to cook us dinner? Would that?
Actually, I probably could. I don't cook very much. I'm out most evenings, so I also live on ready meals. This is like, they should get some ready meal sponsorship for this podcast. Well, they're very high class these days.
You get some very nice ready meals now.
Yeah.
I think I've eaten my way through all of them.
It's a great variety.
Yes.
Wonderful. So Tom, how do you feel about ready meals?
Well, ready meals, I don't know. Is that some a particular make, or that's just things you put in the microwave?
Yeah.
Anything you put in the
microwave.
microwave.
Well, I've had my share in my life. I'm Tom Phillips. My main career was as a British diplomat. I haven't had really much to do with Hull throughout my life until Raphael Cohen Almagor, who runs the Middle East Study Centre here, got in touch with me. He's writing a book on the Middle East peace process in which I've been heavily involved. So I got to know him, and then he involved me in the study centre, and I've become sort of involved with that, of trying to get good people to speak to it. And it's been a lot of fun. But one of the main reasons also interested in Hull is I'm a huge fan of English literature, and you've got a lot of poets associated with this place, some of whom are real favourites of mine.
You mentioned Philip Larkin in your
I mentioned Philip Larkin
speech.
and Andrew Marvell.
But when I was here, all the librarians, or the male librarians, all looked like Philip Larkin. They sort of all had bald heads, and I think it was a look they were going for, an aesthetic that the university had brought.
He does, of course, raises those complex issues of separating life and art, because some of the stuff that's come out on the biographical front is not comfortable.
But it makes the poems even more interesting.
It makes the poems, yeah. And I read them coming up on the train yesterday. They're Less Deceived, Dunwits and Weddings, and they're still wonderful.
So going back to this week, we've talked a little bit about your history and your connections with the university, but specifically looking at your experience, because you've all had your honorary awards today. We're going to be talking to some honorary graduates later who are yet to receive theirs in the following days. But you've had that. How did that feel? What was your experience being an honorary graduate on the stage talking to the congregation?
It was it was an impressive event. It was well organised. What I found really moving was watching the young people receiving their degrees, and some of the research subjects people had done were fascinating. Mm-hmm. But also with all of them, you think, what are they going to do with their lives? I think your challenge to them, go out there and make it, was a very, very real one, and I hope it resonated, because you had all that future before you in the room, which was just amazing to think about.
I think for me, I'd echo everything that Tom said, but I'd also say for me, my passion is trying to encourage women to stretch themselves from whatever backgrounds they're from. And it was great to see so many girls, women coming up to receive degrees, which possibly 20, 30 years ago you wouldn't have seen. In my circumstances at age 16 or 15 and 3/4, my father said to me, you don't need to stay on at school because you'll get married, have children, and you won't have a career. And on the back of that, fought really hard to make sure both my daughters were offered the opportunity to study if that's what they wanted to do, which they both did, and ended up getting good degrees at Hull University. So that really buoyed me up, because I thought, those girls, ladies that are coming through today are hopefully going to continue that rise in their career, and we'll see some of them leading businesses in the future.
It'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I mean, I suppose having graduated from here and then coming back sort of 15, 16 years later, I suppose it's a moment to reflect on all the people that I was here with then and what that experience was like. I was part of a very big generation here who, like myself, were the first generation of that family to go to university. And often that meant the first in that family to leave that immediate familial community, to relocate to a different part of the country and to lead a life that was very different to our parents and grandparents. So I suppose it was a chance for me to reflect on where we all are now and the sheer diversity of careers we've gone into. Doing drama here, you were a very tight-knit group because you were together through your studies and through your sort of academic course, but also you were making and sort of working with each other on extracurricular projects the whole time. So unlike other courses where I think you might have had a chance to mingle with more people from different subjects, we were very sort of close-knit together and actually thinking of the different careers that everybody from that course now has. There are actually very few of us left working in theatre and the arts, but there are people in everything from, the police, teaching, people in sciences, people who have retrained, people who have gone into the law. One of us is in prison, I won't talk too much about that, but very different and interesting places. And I suppose for me, there was a real chance to reflect on, as you say, what we've all done with that moment of promise, where it suddenly feels like you're leaving education and it's your turn to go out and try and make something and try and put into practice all the idealism that your education has instilled in you. And it's, very emotional moment, I suppose, for someone who isn't normally very emotional about anything.
Well, I'm really pleased actually that you've all been able to take away those things, because I think that's really what we hope the University of Hull embodies. It is about that potential, and it's about that sense of belonging, and it's about empowering and being inclusive and supporting everybody. Trends come and go, don't they? But one of the things that we've always had a reputation for is being the friendly university. And has that been your sense when you've been here as almost as an outsider, I guess, today? You've come back into the fold. Be particularly interested, David, I think, to how your experience today and the kind of energy that you got from the university and the students differed to that. Are there threads that are consistent?
Yes and no. I was delighted to see how many people are studying criminology. Clearly there's a boon in that happening. I mean, I did always find the university itself very welcoming and very open. I changed degrees at the last minute, so I applied, I think, weeks before the course was due to start, back when I was a teenager, wanting to switch from another sort of degree to drama, and people were very open and receptive to that. I think studying theatre, while it probably doesn't sound like it, was actually quite a bruising and challenging course. It's one of the few, I suppose, subjects where you're competing for a very limited number of opportunities against your peers and your friends. And if you want to be one of the 3 or 4 people that gets the opportunity to direct something more substantial or to have, your work sort of go forward, there was a real sense of competition there, which, while at the time could be a bit challenging, but I think was always done in the best possible faith, I think it really toughened me up for a lot of really difficult decisions and jobs that I've had sort of since. And I think being able to have that in an environment that felt quite cosseted and supported was really invaluable. And I think the city is naturally very friendly and has a very particular and unique air about it. The people I met in the city, there's a huge amount of art and culture here. Sometimes it's slightly beneath the surface that you need to sort of go looking for it, but those people are incredibly open and wanting to share and wanting to include as many people in their practice as possible. So in many ways, it's the perfect place to come and have those sort of formative years.
That's what I'd love. I think the University of Hull is such a huge part of the community of Hull. I was born and brought up in Hull, and it was almost as if the minute the freshers come in, they're embraced, and we always knew the weaker freshers, and it was almost the shops were ready for them, and the accommodation, and you could feel there was a buzz. It felt really quiet the week before, then there was Freshers Week, and I've worked all over the UK and across the world, but I've never experienced a city that embraces the students as much as Hull does, and they really do, and they welcome them, and as part of my speech this morning was all about, please go away and tell the people you meet in your future careers, wherever that may take you, wherever in the world, please tell people how much, if you did enjoy Hull, that you enjoyed Hull and what Hull has to offer, because I think personally it's one of the most underrated cities in the UK, and we can offer so much. And having worked for many years in London, you know, you talk about Hull and people make a joke about my accent, but when you actually start to have conversations with them about Hull and what is here and what we've produced, people are often quite surprised.
I couldn't agree more. Massively underrated and unfair rep sometimes. I think, talking about culture, I think the City of Culture did a great deal to improve our reputation, but I think we need to work on making the most of the momentum that we started with that. Tom, I'd be curious to know if your thoughts and views, your perception of Hull and the city was different before you got here. You said you kind of came late to having that affiliation with Hull. So how did that match up with the reality?
I mean, I had very little idea of the reality, apart from how it's been described through literature, and I suppose especially through Philip Larkin, who gives a pretty deliberately bleak view in some ways. And when I came in sort of quite late last night, and it didn't feel lively. It was fairly closed down, as it were. So I thought, whoops. But actually, today's been like going through layers, finding more, and people have been very friendly, and going around the city centre and discovering the bits that survived the bombing. I mean, I live in France near Saint-Nazaire, Brest, Lorient, towns that were flattened by bombing in the war, and I know what it's like to have been hammered. And so seeing that impact. But then people were very friendly, and there are some lovely bits that survive, and Rafi very kindly walked me around the town. And then the campus was a massive surprise. I had no idea it was so attractive, actually. I'd asked for a tour of the library for the Larkin reason, but then going up to the tower and looking around and seeing how leafy it is, and what a campus university is, which I hadn't appreciated. It's felt very good. So unfortunately, I've only got a day here, but it's been like unwrapping layers, and I'm still not there, but it's been a great day discovering.
Multifaceted, I think.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a secret. I mean, you've obviously got the accent, so people probably open up to you. But I think through my career, I keep running into people who have a Hull connection, and it's like finding something out that you have in common. There's a unique mentality that the city gives you. There used to be a sign that said Hull up and coming for 30 years. And I think there is something about that. There is such a sense of possibility that anything is sort of possible here. People are really willing to give things a go. And a lot of people moved here in the sort of 70s and 80s, a lot of very artistic people who moved out of London during the sort of big property boom and then ended up sort of settling here and living the rest of their lives out. And it is, I don't know, there's just an energy that brought to the city, that when you find out people have spent time here, it becomes a really interesting connection. And so many fascinating people have been here at different points. I only learned a few years ago that Jacob Bronowski was here really early on. And, you know, there were just fascinating links with people who have come in for a time and then left. But I think always keep a sort of sensibility that the city sort of gives you. And
I think that's the thing is University of Hull students, when they become graduates, honorary or through ceremonies as we've had today with our graduating cohorts, there's a sense of connection. Doesn't matter whether you graduated 20, 30, 40 years apart. It's like you said, if you're a graduate of this university, that means something. And I really like the fact that you talk about going out and advocating for this university and being proud to be from this city and from the university. So that probably takes me quite nicely to ask, if you were speaking to somebody who was considering their options, considering going to university, what would you say to them about Hull?
I think going back to my point earlier, it's a true community. It's still got that community feel. And as I said earlier, you know, I've worked all over the UK, and okay, I might be biased because I was born and brought up here, but the minute you step off the train and you walk through the station, you see Philip Larkin's brass statue there. You're not a student, you're part of the community, and you know, our tentacles reach to everybody. So even if you're here for 3 years studying for a degree or 4 years, you are part of us, and we welcome you. And as I say, the community welcomes you. And it's funny because wherever I go, people are so keen to tell me, as Tom just said, you know, if they've been here for a day, or, you know, I'm in London and I went to Hull for a day, but they're so keen to tell me, you know, as if there's a badge of honour that they've actually been to Hull. And it's really interesting, and that's why I say I think it's sad that people have a perception about Hull, and somehow we've got to break that perception, because I think that will help the university in years to come for undergraduates when they're choosing their courses.
And I think that's what we rely on, is all of our graduates to be our advocates, to champion this city, this university, because we do have so much to offer. But I think it hits much harder when it comes from people like you who got a genuine passion for that. David, what would your advice as a graduate be to someone considering this institution?
I think what's great about the student body here is that they mirror, I think, the wider population in terms of the sort of values they bring. I mean, Hull is sort of at the end of the line. I think it attracts people who want to do things differently, who are slightly subversive, who have a slight sort of disregard for the rules sometimes, and who want to change things and who don't want to settle for that status quo. And I think the student body that it attracts sort of is quite in concert with that. So sometimes when I meet people who are considering their options, you can sort of tell that they would really embrace and enjoy the adventure that coming to Hull really offers, and the sort of atmosphere and the playground that the city offers as a backdrop to the university. It definitely isn't for everybody, but I find that the most interesting people have the best time here.
So, Tom, have you had the best time?
Yeah, no,
That's
I've
a loaded question.
I've had a lovely day in 24 hours.
That's a barometer of how interesting you are, though, wasn't
I
it?
think, if somebody asked me about Hull, what I would say today is radically different from what I would have said yesterday because of that 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody going to university, I'd also say, look at the course, because it's so much individual courses, individual departments these days, what's thriving, what isn't. I think you said, we're shocked by how much criminology is out there on the map these days. And I didn't know about the medical school here, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I've learned a lot. But with anybody wanting to go to university, I'd say look at the course and look at the department and look at the reputation of the individuals teaching there. But I would be able to say, and Hull is a great place, so don't write it off because it's Hull and it's somewhere up there, as it were.
Somewhere up there. And of course we have Chip Spice, which are any of you familiar?
Oh,
of
yes.
course, Louise, you would
absolutely, yes.
I will say that I've never really come across Hull snobbery. Maybe people just know that I wouldn't tolerate, but I've not come across it, I think, in the way that other people do. I think the perception of the city has radically changed over the last 10 years. And actually coming back since City of Culture, I spent quite a bit of time here during 2017, and the theatre that I ran in London at the time did quite a lot of work with a lot of the emerging artists in the city. But it feels like a place really rejuvenated and revived. And I think the reputation has considerably moved on and leapfrogged since, I don't know, the early 2000s, where I think, as you say, there was a lot of prejudice, particularly towards sort of northern towns, that I think feels like it's really stripped away.
I mean, we're leading the way in so many ways. When we look at the wind farms and all of the energy, we've got the energy estuary. We have got the opportunity to make a big difference in this city and its university, and with our students and graduates.
And you look at the opportunities for research and development. You look at Reckitt and Coleman, Smith and Nephew. There are some really big names here with great opportunities for students to move on into research and development in so many fields in the city.
I think the only right thing to do would be to take you to dinner and continue our conversations over not a ready meal.
Can I just make one point, though?
You can.
I was a sort of headmaster, we call commandant of something called the Royal College of Defence Studies in London, which is a college for strategic studies, diplomats, military people, so on and so forth. But we have a huge alumni network of people around the world, and it really did bring home to me what an alumni network can be. I mean, I could be anywhere in the world, and it was somebody to pick up the phone to. But also setting up the mentoring schemes and things that we managed to do, and the newsletters and the keep in touch things. I think it's an enormous focus of strength for any organisation, so I was very happy to take part tonight, but I was glad to know what's happening on the alumni front.
Well, I couldn't agree more. As an alumni engagement manager for the University of Hull, I could not agree more. But yeah, and we've got 70. I'm looking at David, who you can't see, 70,000 contactable alumni. You can just nod. He's nodding at me.
70,001, because I've finally given my contact details across today.
Oh, David. Yes, so we've got tens of thousands of alumni around the world. We work very hard on making sure that we've got accessible content for them to help, and even just social occasions. So yeah, we very much hope that as many of our graduates and honorary graduates as possible will stay engaged with us and help us grow and mobilise and take over the world.
Oh, so that's the plot.
That's the
now I understand.
That's the long plan. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very, very much. Thank you for taking your time to come to the ceremonies. Thank you for recording with us evening, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rachel.
Thank you.